It is our Wednesday edition of Fantasy Football Today. Thank you so much for tuning in, all of you on YouTube. Please spread the word, help us grow, hit the subscribe button, tell your friends, and let's make some trades. Deebo Samuel is off to quite a start. He is the second most receiving yards in 49ers history through the first 4 games of a season. Who do you think has the most?
Jerry Rice.
Yeah, Jerry Rice. Yeah. Good call, Heath. Good call. We'll talk about him. Cordarrelle Patterson is off to a great start, and you can make him eligible at running back and wide receiver in your leagues, by the way, in the commissioner tools. Alvin Kamara is off to a little bit of an interesting start. 3rd in the NFL in carries, but not even top 20, I don't think, in catches.
Speaking of commissioner tools.
No, stop.
It has to be addressed.
Are you okay?
Yeah,
first off, congratulations
to
the Boston Red Sox
for
qualifying for the playoffs.
Don't say it.
Wow, what a 24-hour stretch. The biggest commissioner debacle I think I've ever witnessed. And your team loses a 1-game playoff to get into the playoffs.
No, they were in the playoffs, you idiot.
I'm pretty sure the playoffs start now.
Oh, the playoffs. That was the wild card round.
Who would ever have a one game playoff? That's ridiculous.
Football.
That was like a tiebreaker.
Football happens.
Wow. Are you okay?
I'm stressed. because the podcast league is driving me crazy right now. Partially my own fault.
This is a thing though that it's much better that you learned this with the podcast league than with your children. And I've made this mistake with my children, so I just want to help you out. Okay. You don't make threats that you don't want to enforce. And you made a threat that you were not willing to enforce. Mm-hmm. And now you're dealing with the repercussions.
I think I ultimately made the right decision. But yes, Fantasy Cops are coming on today, and we will talk about this very controversial decision in the podcast league. I got some quick trade questions for you here. What we're going to do today is a little bit different. We usually do buy low, sell high. There will be some of that kind of woven into the fabric of the show. But we're going to take a little inventory of each position and decide who we think are the real difference makers. If you have these guys, you don't even think twice about starting them. You feel like you have an advantage at the position, and who could break into that group and who could leave that group. And that will give us sort of that buy low, sell high flavor. And we'll do that for each position. But let me start with 5 quick trade questions for you. What would you trade Cordarrelle Patterson for right now? What would you give up Patterson to get right now? Dave, you can start.
I would love to try and get T. Higgins, who didn't play last week. Maybe people have forgotten about what his upside is. You sell high on Cordarrelle Patterson, you get somebody like T. Higgins. Maybe you even get somebody like George Kittle, who hasn't been quite delivering, but he's playing a premium position, and you know that numbers will eventually come for him. Those would be 2 guys that I would try. I think I'd be winning the trade if I got those guys for Cordarrelle Patterson.
And I'd go a little lower at tight end. I would also accept Mark Andrews for Cordarrelle Patterson.
I think that's higher.
I would like a rest of season. You'd rather have Andrews than Kittle?
I think so.
Wow. That's a developing situation. Jalen Hurts was the quarterback that I thought of. That I think Jalen Hurts will be a difference maker. I don't know, like trading him for a running back right now feels really weird. I'm not sure I would give him up for T. Higgins, to be honest. But the running back, I would trade him for. Man,
want some names?
I can't find like a buy low running back that I would like to trade him for.
What about would you trade him for a running back who you might consider a sell high, whose value was 0 at one point this year? Zack Moss.
I'd rather have Cordarrelle Patterson.
I don't know if I would. And I know you'd rather have Jacobs. You and I value Jacobs a lot differently. What about Miles Sanders? I'm offering you Miles Sanders right now for Cordarrelle Patterson. You taking that deal?
I think I'd just probably keep Patterson.
I would keep Patterson if it's a PPR league.
How about Darrell Henderson or Patterson?
I'd rather have Henderson, but I don't think you're gonna be able to pull that off. But yeah, I would take Henderson.
You might be able to pull that off only because of the dual eligibility. I mean, it is kind of helpful, but yeah.
Let me give you one more, and then you can move on. David Montgomery. You're
I would
4-0
have to be
Cordarrelle
3-1 at worst.
Right. But I'm 1-3 and I need a running back.
Then I would probably do that. Yeah, probably.
All right. So it sounds like you're buying Patterson as a usable option going forward and not a total fluke.
Yeah.
Do you think, I know this sounds crazy, but do you think that Russell Gage's eventual return will hurt Patterson in a significant way?
No.
Not in a significant way.
I think it might hurt Mike Davis.
Okay. I just want to read something. You mentioned Jalen Hurts, so I know this is off subject, but Michelle Magic, who we've had on our show before at Ball Blastem, she tweeted a few days ago, most fantasy points by a quarterback in his first 8 career starts. Mahomes 1, Deshaun Watson 2, Cam Newton 3, Jalen Hurts 4, Justin Herbert 5. Thought that was pretty interesting. Next topic. What would you trade Deebo Samuel for? You are giving up Deebo Samuel. You have to get what? Samuel has 490 yards, a 31% target share. He's the number 3 receiver in fantasy. Heath, you're giving up Samuel. You need to get what for Deebo?
Yikes. I would need more than I would need for Cordarrelle Patterson.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you could get something like Tyler Lockett after 2 bad games.
That'd be a dream.
Maybe you could get something like, geez Louise, like those running backs we were talking about. Maybe could I have something like a Darrell Henderson plus Michael Pittman?
You could try for something like that.
I mean, so what about Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb? Would you trade Deebo for them?
In a heartbeat.
No.
Who's buying Deebo more here? It sounds like Heath is buying Deebo. Well, Heath's also a little bit down on the Cowboys passing game.
I'm scared to death of the Cowboys passing game. If they come out and throw the ball 25 times this week against the Giants, and why wouldn't they? Then I think that you got a full-on Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb are number 3 wide receivers.
Yeah. Their value could free fall after this week, maybe after next week. But Deebo, to me, and we talked about it on the live show on Tuesday, he's like the ultimate sell high receiver. Drafted him in the mid-round or later, and he's been getting crazy targets while the 49ers offense has been fairly discombobulated. And it's now going to be put in Trey Lance's hands for a week. Then they're on bye, and we'll see how they come out of it. Listen, I think Deebo's great. But if you can turn him into Michael Pittman and Darrell Henderson, I think that's a steal.
What? Wait a second. Really? First of all, Pittman has done almost nothing. He has had a
Pittman's my favorite buy low, so we could just do that part right now.
Fantastic
so many targets. I hope so. I like that, but he's not doing much with the targets except for the Rams game. And what about when Hilton comes back? That's going to happen eventually. Maybe he won't be such a target hog at that point.
Right, but you're not getting just Michael Pittman for Deebo Samuel. You're also getting a potential top 12 running back rest of season in Darrell Henderson.
Buying in a lot to Henderson, huh? That's top 12.
I mean, I
potential.
How many running backs out there are getting 90% of the snaps with their teams and are playing in high-scoring offenses?
I think what's happened with Deebo, with me, and it's the same thing that's happening with Marquise Brown. I put out a dynasty trade poll on Twitter yesterday and just got killed for suggesting that someone might give up a first-round pick in dynasty for Marquise Brown.
Really? So you're saying people don't think that that's enough, or people think
people are not buying these potential third-year wide receiver breakouts? And I wonder if it's because we decided in the last 2 years that the wide receiver breakout year is now year 2 and not year 3. And so the guys that didn't break out year 2, everybody gave up on. But Samuel is getting a huge number of targets. He's running a more complete route tree. He looks more like a real wide receiver. They don't have the ability right now to run the ball like they have in the past. Now, by the end of the year, maybe that will change, but it's been multiple different running backs that are not having the success in the running game that they have in the past. In the past, it's not had anything to do with the actual running backs. It's been because they generated 4 yards before anybody touched them. They're not doing that right now.
Well, that's a little unfair to Mostert. I think Mostert's
Raheem Mostert led the NFL in yards before contact. He would average 4 or 5 yards before contact.
But he also did plenty after the fact, and he's the best running back on the team. I mean, whatever. It doesn't
He
matter.
was made by the San Francisco system.
I don't agree with that.
He's a UDF. Like he's okay.
I don't completely. I mean, look,
Well, he tried 6 other teams and it didn't work.
Obviously, it helped, but he had I guess I always bring this up. He had the 2 fastest plays in the NFL by a running back.
You know what generates the fastest plays? Running for 30 yards with nobody in front of you.
Speed. He's fast. He's really fast, and he's much better than
Daniel Jones has the faster sprint speed than Lamar Jackson. Is he faster than Lamar Jackson?
Why is Trey Sermon so much better? Why isn't Trey Sermon doing better? Why didn't Eli Mitchell do better?
Because what I just said.
Why does Raheem Mostert consistently do better than every other running back in that system? He has been the best. Why is that so hard to accept? I don't know why you just don't like Raheem Mostert.
I do not dislike Raheem Mostert, but it is true that the 49er system made him.
No, it is true that
he would probably have never been a fantasy relevant running back had he not gone to San Francisco.
He had plenty to do with. He's good. No, I mean that might be true, and it was arguably one of the best systems for sure. But he's good. Whatever. Let's get back to Deebo.
What a wonderful debate about a guy that no one can use in fantasy football potentially ever again.
Well, no, look, they're not running the ball as well. Their defense is average. I think they're 22nd in scoring defense. So right now they're below average. Maybe it's a legit breakout. How about this? If you take away the 2 flukiest plays for him, right? So the
long touchdown, right?
The entire catch, but the 50+ yards and the touchdown after the defender falls down, and the 76-yard touchdown from last week where he was wide open. You shouldn't remove them because that happens to some receivers. Right? But even if you did, he's a top 20 wide receiver. He's 18th in non-PPR, and he's, I think, 14th in full PPR, even without those 2 plays. So is he, in your mind, at least a top 20 wide receiver going forward, Deebo Samuel?
Yes.
I've got him 22nd in non-PPR rest of season, higher than that in full PPR.
Okay. All right. Next topic. How do you value Alvin Kamara? I asked this because last night on our live stream flooded with Alvin Kamara trade questions. So how do you value Kamara, who is just outside the top 12? I mean, he's within a couple points of the top 10 probably. It's very bunched up right now. But Dave, your thoughts?
He's 18th in PPR points per game among running backs. So that worries me. We know that he's not getting the same type of catches that he's had in the past. We knew that there would be a downgrade there, but we were thinking it might be by 20 catches over the span of the season, tacking on an extra game. I don't know what the pace is right now. I think he has 10 catches through 4 games. So if you, if one of you math wizards can figure it out, we'll have an idea of how many catches he's on pace for.
He was on pace for about 55 catches going into 57 going into week 4 when he didn't have a target for the first.
So that's clearly going down since he didn't do anything in the passing game in week 4. He also had Taysom Hill bogart a couple of touchdowns from him in week 4. I think he's still. I look. You're starting Alvin Kamara if you've got him on your fantasy team, but if you can trade him at a value similar to what a top 5 running back would normally get, you should strongly consider it, regardless of format.
I value him as a top 10 running back.
Okay.
Fair.
So I'm going to just go through some names. So McCaffrey, Cook, Henry, they're easy. Zeke, Jones ahead of him.
Yes.
Who else?
Yeah.
Eckler ahead of him at this point.
Yes.
Probably. It's close.
All right.
I'm just not like he still has a 17% target share. I'm just not certain. Like, are they going to keep throwing the ball 22 times a game? Probably not.
He hasn't had a rushing touchdown despite having the 3rd most carries.
That's just unlucky.
Yeah. All right. Kamara is
unlucky and unfortunate because 2 of them were taken from him last week.
That's true. Who is your favorite buy low? Heath, I know who it is. Who's your favorite buy low?
It's Michael Pittman. I believe he has 32 targets over his last 3 games. And I know, like, this is the thing where my touchdown luck bias will show through. But when I see a guy that's consistently scoring 12 plus fantasy points without touchdowns, now this didn't work with Jacoby Myers, obviously. I think that is the guy that I want to go get. In the last 3 weeks, 20.3, 12.8, 13.3, 11.9 PPR fantasy points. 0 touchdowns in those 3 games. He's going to score touchdowns. He has 5 targets inside the 10-yard line, I believe is what Dave said, or in the red zone.
Inside the 10.
Inside the 10. I just believe, again, that this is one where the breakout is happening. It's being disguised by the fact that he hasn't scored yet. And he's going to be a borderline number 2 wide receiver rest of season. I don't have any reason to believe that T.Y. Hilton is going to make a difference when he comes back.
If he comes back. I mean, they're being very vague about it. They're not giving a timetable. Frank Reich said T.Y. Hilton is closer, but nothing worth reporting at this point. Seems very vague. And he had a neck injury. Obviously, it's a serious thing. I mean, it's a neck injury. It's not like a sprained ankle. Dave, who's your favorite buy low?
It sounds a little silly to say this, but Darrell Henderson, who has been getting a ton of work. I know that he's got some injury concerns, but the Rams offense is going to be one that puts up a ton of points. Came back last week, played 90% of the snaps. The Sony Michel fumble might have helped in that regard. And he didn't have a monster game. He didn't score. He had over 100 total yards. And I wonder if fantasy managers might trade Henderson away at a value that isn't what it should be. I think he should be viewed as a running back who you don't have to necessarily give up top 12 value for in a trade, but with the understanding that he could be a top 12 running back very, very quickly here.
I think he also has 8 catches in his last 2 games. Darrell Henderson, that's a big deal.
He had 5, I think, in week 4.
He had 5, and then he had 3 the week before. So 8 catches in his last 2 games. Yeah, we don't expect 4 per game, but it's nice to have a little bit of involvement there. Who is your favorite sell high, Heath?
This one is way more difficult for me, but it's probably going to be Najee Harris. If somebody buys him as a top 5 running back rest of season, just because that's what he's been so far, and he does lead all running backs in receptions on the year. A lot of that obviously has to do with the 19 target game. This offense is a complete disaster. I don't think there's much hope that the 3.4 yards per carry improves. And so I think you're probably getting 40 to 50 rushing yards each week. I'm not 100% sure when Claypool, Juju, and Deontay Johnson are all healthy that there is going to be a massive target share for Najee Harris. I think it'll be more like just an acceptable target share.
Okay. Would you
rather
have
him or Kamara rest of season?
Kamara.
Me too.
Would you rather have Najee Harris or Deebo Samuel?
Probably Najee.
Oh my gosh, Najee.
Najee Harris or Cooper Kupp?
Harris has more value on the trade chart.
Probably Kupp.
Okay. Dave, favorite sell high?
Favorite sell high is Deebo. Because I don't think it's sustainable. We've seen 2 games where he's had huge plays and he's put up 30 PPR points. We've also seen 2 games with 15 or fewer PPR points.
Whoa.
I think that's a little
15 or fewer.
Am I wrong on that? Maybe I was looking at a half PPR.
No, 15 fantasy points is like wide receiver 7 for the week or something.
I don't think so. I think it's probably like around 20th or so. But I mean,
if you're going to keep him, I think you need to understand that Deebo Samuel is not going to keep this up. I don't think he's going to be a top 12 wide receiver rest of season. And if you want to trade him away and get top 12 value for him, now's the perfect time to do it. Big question mark coming this week with Trey Lance under center, then a bye. And then when that bye is over, that 49ers run game could be back. And I think Garoppolo could be back by then too. We'll see. That would help Deebo. But there's still the matter of this team leaning on the run quite a bit and Deebo Samuel seeing a lot of 10 to 15 PPR point games. Not saying he's a bad player. He's definitely improved. You can see that when you watch him. But I don't see him having a bunch of 20-plus games like the top wide receivers in fantasy typically do.
In the interest of always decimal scoring, Deebo actually has at least 16.1 PPR fantasy points in 3 of 4 games.
Yeah, he only had 1 bad game, and even in that game, he had double-digit targets, I think. So, like I said, target shares over 30%, and they're 19th, I believe, in pass attempts. But I don't think anyone would argue with turning him into a top 10, top 12.
Am I giving him away in a non-PPR if I accept Marquise Brown for him?
No, because he's got 3 touchdowns, and 2 of them were pretty fortunate.
Why? But why would what Marquise Brown's done be more believable than what Deebo Samuel's done? Why would you want to have Brown over Samuel?
Because I think Brown has a chance to continue to keep doing what he's doing. I think he's a clear part of this Baltimore offense. Like, he's their number one receiver. Deebo is technically their number one receiver, but there's Kittle there as well.
Mark Andrews is there.
Andrews is there. That's a fair
point. The run
point.
game's a bigger threat in Baltimore.
The target's
I disagree. I think the run game's a bigger threat.
Dave, the answer is actually yes. I mean, because even if you think Brown is going to be better, if you're trading Deebo for Brown, that's not good fantasy football play, right? I mean, you've got to get more. Deebo's value is so much higher right now than Marquise Brown's.
I would think that you could get more for Deebo, even in a non-PPR, than Marquise Brown. It's literally the next name above Brown or above Samuel in my non-PPR trade chart.
All right.
PPR, there's no doubt.
All right, let's move on. All right. Yeah. So good stuff. All right. Thank you for your buy lows and sell highs. I'm going to try to do a fun Halloween fantasy football name for the rest of the month because this is my favorite month and Halloween is the best holiday. Heath, please leave your lights on this year.
0% chance.
Today's Halloween football name is DeMarcus Werewolf. DeMarcus Werewolf. If we've used these before, I'm sorry, I forgot. There you go. DeMarcus Werewolf. Do you want an edge while setting your defense while you're setting your DFS lineups? Check out the Fantasy Football Today DFS podcast. It's awesome. Frank Stanfield, Mike McClure, Ian Ishad, they're going to help you dominate cash games, GPP, whatever it is. Deep diving into pricing and matchups. Listen to the Fantasy Football Today DFS podcast wherever you listen to FFT. And Sunday is a big day. The NFL on CBS welcomes in Week 5 with some fantastic matchups, including Tom Brady and the Bucs hosting the Dolphins, the Saints taking on the Washington football team, and a battle between two of the best young quarterbacks in Los Angeles. It's Baker Mayfield Browns meeting Justin Herbert's Chargers. Coverage begins at noon Eastern with the NFL Today. That's Week 5 of the NFL coming up this Sunday on CBS. News and notes real quick here. Ben Roethlisberger has a hip issue, but Mike Tomlin still said he's the best option at quarterback. Gave him a little bit of a vote of confidence. The Patriots could sign linebacker Jamie Collins. He was cut by Detroit. The Patriots also, we're going to be high on Damian Harris, I presume, this week, but they might be missing two more linemen. Isaiah Wynn and Mike Onwenu, hope I said that right, are both on the reserve COVID list, both starters on the left side of the line. David Montgomery's out 4 to 5 weeks. That news broke late in our show yesterday. So reassessing that now, not the easiest matchups. A bye week could be part of that. What do you think, Dave, about Damian Williams in this upcoming stretch?
I'm going to like him a lot this week against Las Vegas. Seems to be mostly healthy. I don't think the thigh bruise is going to be something that totally slows him down. I do think he will lose a little bit of work to Khalil Herbert, but I think you're starting him as a number 2 fantasy running back for this week. It's the matchups after this week that are going to make me a little queasy. It's some combination of Green Bay, Tampa Bay, San Francisco, and Pittsburgh that could make things a little bit tough on Damian Williams, but we're at a point right now in the season where if you have a running back who's got potential to get 15 touches on your roster, congratulations, you have a guy that's probably a starting running back. And that's what Williams will be as long as he's healthy. And then Montgomery will be back, hopefully, on fantasy rosters by week 11.
Some defense. Well, actually, before we get to the defensive stuff, Josh Gordon has been promoted to the active roster, has a chance to play this week against the Buffalo Bills. Dallas released Jalen Smith, which was interesting. And the Patriots released Stephon Gilmore, which was even more interesting. How about that? And already Heath predicting, and Dave, that he'll go to the Bucs. Makes sense. The Bears acquired Jakeem Grant from Miami for a 2023 6th-round pick. I don't think that's fantasy relevant. In terms of we got some reports yesterday about backfields, Heath. For Detroit, this is just an ESPN. I don't know if you want to call it speculation or maybe it's sourced. But Detroit's backfield could depend on the scheme in terms of how they divvy up the touches, the scheme that they face each week.
I think Dan Campbell and Anthony Lynn are going to fight about this.
Philadelphia could be a timeshare backfield unless and until Miles Sanders busts out, according to ESPN.
I don't understand what that means, considering he's been better virtually every way you could measure it than Kenneth Gainwell.
Yeah, and like I said on FFT and 5, you can't bust out unless you're getting carries. So maybe try that. And Alex Collins not likely to have an increased role according to the Athletic.
But Chris Carson didn't practice Tuesday with a neck issue.
Yeah, and
they play Thursday. So he's very likely to have an increased role if Chris Carson doesn't practice or isn't able to play.
Yeah, and there was a Seattle Times article that really praised Alex Collins. He's lost weight and he's lighter now. He's moving better, according to Pete Carroll. And that article, at least Dave thinks that Collins could be a pretty useful player and could help unlock the run game a little bit.
I said it on Tuesday. It wouldn't surprise me if 3 weeks from now we saw Collins with a slight nod, a lead here in Seattle's backfield. And it pains me to say it. I love Chris Carson, but if Chris Carson didn't look good last week and Collins did, you want to talk about, you need to run. We talked with the 49ers earlier on this show about how Raheem Mostert's speed helped make a huge difference with the offensive line. There wasn't that much more speed to Alex Collins than there was to Chris Carson last Sunday, but it was enough to help Collins get to the spot he needed to get to in order to gain ground. So I'm interested to see what happens next in Seattle. Pete Carroll just wants to run the football. I know he loves Chris Carson. He loves his physicality, but if he can't do it, and now if he's hurt, it makes it easy for him to just give Collins way more work.
Time for our new segment. We're going to try to take inventory on the positions here. Might have to cut it. Why don't we just do running backs and wide receivers or something? And next week we can do quarterbacks and tight ends. We have a game to preview. We have the fantasy cops. We have a lot of fantasy copsing to do. Fantasy policing, as they call it. So why don't we, quarterback and tight end are much easier. Running back and wide receiver should give us better debate here. Who's a difference maker? Who could join or leave the group? Who do you feel just totally comfortable with in your lineup? Within this discussion, if you feel like there are some buy lows or some sell highs, please throw it out. Now, we didn't know the name of the segment. The first suggestion was real or fake. That was terrible. The second suggestion was, I don't want to steal anything from other analysts or anything, but I thought this, believe it or not believing it, I thought maybe could work. But we moved on from that. Difference maker
What
or
do you
different?
think of that one?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was brilliant. That's what I said in the text. Brilliant.
Okay. Heath did not come up with that one. Difference maker or difference faker?
Well, he came up with 70% of it, just in a different.
Sure. Difference maker or difference faker? League winner or fantasy sinner? Buy it or deny it? That one doesn't really work. I think difference maker or difference faker.
I don't know what exactly we're doing here.
Yeah, so basically you have this player, you feel very comfortable with this player, you start him, it's just, it's
you're either going to buy it or deny it.
No, we're not buying or selling anything. We're saying, are they a difference maker or a difference faker?
You're buying their production so far or denying it.
No, not necessarily, because they could be off to a bad start, but you still believe in them. Like Lamar Jackson is not off to a great start, but he's definitely in this.
So we're not talking about the people who have been difference makers so far.
They will be discussed, but I want to know if you think that they are true difference makers, like Kareem Hunt, for example.
Can you get us started, and then I'll have a better grasp of what we're doing here?
Yeah. All right. So my question is, which running backs do you just think are part of a group that you're not really willing to just trade away? Like they're really good.
They're keepers.
Yeah,
you want to keep them on your team no matter what.
They're not. Look, I'm not saying that you can't make a trade off or try to upgrade, but you know what I'm saying. So at running back, all right, the obvious ones: McCaffrey, Henry, Eckler, Zeke, Jones, Nick Chubb, Montgomery when healthy. Let's go to Kareem Hunt. Do you think
Dalvin Cook would Dalvin Cook make it?
Yeah, I'm just going down the list of fantasy points. Yes, Dalvin Cook would make it.
So we are talking about how they've done so far.
Well, yeah. What the hell?
I don't understand. Like Nick Chubb.
Do you feel like Nick Chubb is an absolute, must start, no question, difference maker?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Of course. What about Kareem Hunt? He is the number 7 running back in non-PPR. What about Kareem Hunt? Do you feel that way about him, or do you think
he's a sell high?
Okay. For what? Kamara? That would be easy, right? You'd do that.
I'd rather have Darrell Henderson.
Rather have Darrell Henderson. So the
fact
that Henderson is in this group, I think, is good stuff. I mean, that's fantasy relevant. You guys are obviously buying in. The one thing that gives me a little bit of pause, I just want to see what happens this week, because Dave alluded to it. Sony Michel fumbled. I think the carries were something like 6-3 when Michel fumbled and in favor of Henderson, and Michel didn't have a carry the rest of the game. Sometimes that's just a in-game thing, and next week, he's out of the doghouse. So I do want to see if Henderson dominates again this week. But you guys are in. Great offense, ton of carries, a little bit of passing game. All right, Henderson's in the group. James Robinson, are we totally good with him now?
Trust.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to start him.
Big trust. Big trust.
Mixon, Barkley, Najee. Like, even Najee is a sell high, but he's still
big trust.
He's definitely in this group, that whatever it is.
I think we know what it is. Antonio Gibson. Is Antonio Gibson in it?
He's in it.
He's in it, but he's also, like Najee, is someone that you could sell high on. What I'm thinking about with Najee and with Gibson is, when I say sell high, I mean maybe try and upgrade. Take this great running back and try and turn him into something even better.
Hey, Schrager, you there?
What's up?
Do you understand what the hell I'm talking about in this segment? Like, do you get it?
Yes, but I also understand how confusing this is.
Only confusing because Heath is making it confusing. I think
I'm seeking out clarification. I'm trying to do the exact opposite of what I'm being accused of.
Okay. All right, here's a good one. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Are you totally comfortable with him?
No.
So when it comes to him, I feel like you have to. Like, here's another running back that's getting 15 touches, and it's hard to find these guys.
Right.
He's not in that same bubble as the other running backs that we've been talking about so far. He's out of that.
So you agree?
It's not big trust, but it's still. If I have Edwards-Helaire on my team, I'm starting him.
Yeah,
not necessarily.
Give me an example.
Well, I mean, you would start DeAndre Swift over him, I assume. James Robinson over him. Darrell Henderson over him.
Sure.
I think in PPR you start Chase Edmonds and Kareem Hunt over him. This week in PPR, I would start Cordarrelle Patterson over him.
This is over Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So this is what I'm talking about, where I think
this is what you want to know, Adam.
The Clyde manager should know that we don't view him as a no doubt about it slam dunk start, even coming off 2 good games in a row. And that's where I think you might put out some offers. So, all right, this is the goal of the segment here. DeAndre Swift, even with 2, kind of duds and 2 stud games.
I'm starting DeAndre Swift. He is in the group for sure in PPR. He's questionable in non.
He's not in the top group in non.
Melvin Gordon is actually RB16 in non PPR, but he's not in the group.
No.
He's definitely not in the club.
Chris Carson, is he still in it?
No.
Really?
Not in the number 1 club.
He has a neck injury.
All right, a healthy Chris Carson though. Do you think that Alex Collins really eats into his work, or do you think Carson just goes back to being the lead running back and he's fine?
Carson's not had the same role in the passing game that I was hoping for, and he's sharing a little bit on early downs, so no.
He's not. He hasn't played 50% of the snaps in 2 of his last 3 games.
Would you rather have Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Carson?
Carson's higher on the rest of season chart just because, he's there because it came out on Tuesday. If he doesn't play on Thursday, I think I'd rather have Edwards-Helaire.
Okay.
Might be a little overreactionary on my part, but I'm nervous.
Chase Edmonds is there in full PPR. What about
in the second club?
Yeah, right. Not a stud, but starting him. James Conner.
He's not partying at XS. He's hanging out at like whatever nightclub is at the Mirage.
James Conner.
No.
He's hanging out at the nightclub at the Hooters Casino. But he's in a club.
Christian McCaffrey, yes.
Have you said Jonathan Taylor yet?
Jonathan Taylor's next.
He's in the club.
How did James Conner get in the conversation?
I'm just going by fantasy points scored.
Wow. So that means Conner scored more than Jonathan Taylor this year.
In non-PPR.
Wow, man. Taylor's in the club.
Zack Moss.
No.
They benched Devin Singletary last week after the fumble. He did not get back in until the backups were in. I didn't know that at the time, but saw that yesterday. So
now, see, this is the thing.
That is true. Yes, that is
okay. I'm not saying that part's not true. I'm just saying going into last week, we were talking about how Zack Moss is dominating the garbage time. And so that's why he's going to be really good in a game against Houston, because there's lots of carries in garbage time.
Yeah.
And he did.
The way you could have spun that was Zack Moss isn't playing very much until the game's out of control. Devin Singletary is clearly the starting running back. Now, this week, Zack Moss played more when the game might have been in question. The game was never in question. And Devin Singletary played more in garbage time. And it's a point in Zack Moss's favor because Devin Singletary got benched and didn't play until garbage time.
He got benched, though. I mean, he got benched. He didn't.
Like they made him go sit on the bench, or he just, because Zack Moss gets benched
He
regularly.
got benched for fumbling. He got benched for fumbling. It was different than just
What?
Zack Moss's
But
series.
okay, they
What I
who
read.
said
That's
this?
what I read. I'm not. That's. I read a recap of the game. That's what the Bills writer said.
Okay,
All right.
if that's true, and Devin Singletary is not going to play anymore, then Zack Moss would be in the circle of trust.
No, yeah, but I didn't say that Singletary's not going to play. I just said that's what happened. But he's got 4 fumbles in 4 games.
I just don't know when. The reason I'm questioning this so much is not because I want to love Devin Singletary. It's because Zack Moss and Devin Singletary regularly go entire series without playing, and so I would, unless a coach said something, I would wonder how you would know that a player got benched.
Okay,
It does look like Devin Singletary played with Trubisky and the backup guys.
that's what I'm saying.
For until the kneel downs at the end of the game, and then for 2 kneel downs, it was Zack Moss. No one cares about that.
Yeah, I will try to find exactly what I read and read it to you. Going back down to the list of running backs here, Darrell Henderson, you guys appear very high on, so he's in there. How about Jamal Williams?
We can.
Not a
I think
must-start
we
guy.
can move on now to a different position. There's nobody else left in the.
Well, I haven't even said Dalvin Cook.
we said Dalvin Cook when you were going through the early.
All right, well,
games.
how about Latavius Murray? How about Leonard Fournette?
No.
Fournette's starting to get into that second club.
How
Not
about
the elite club, but a trustworthy starter club.
If you're legitimately asking about Latavius Murray, then I again don't know what we're
I'm
talking
sorry,
about.
the guy who's dominating carries for the Ravens and has scored their rushing touchdowns. That's not a legit
Is he in the difference maker must start club? Is what you're asking?
That's what I'm asking. Is he?
No.
Okay. I mean, obviously he's not in the same group as Jonathan Taylor, but he might be in the same group as Chase Edmonds or something like that. He's going to score more touchdowns than Edmonds. He's not going to have the catches, obviously, but I think you could argue that Latavius Murray. I don't think he's a must start because I don't know what they're going to do from week to week. But all right, I mean, I thought it was a question worth asking.
Adam,
That was probably it. Cordarrelle Patterson would be the last guy.
you're starting him if you've got Patterson, unless you were loaded at running back to begin with.
Patterson's in the Chase Edmonds group.
All right. There's no way we're going to have time for wide receiver, so we're going to do quarterback instead.
Adam,
What?
Singletary's fumble came late third quarter. It was recovered by Buffalo. He didn't play again until Trubisky was the quarterback in the fourth quarter. It was 7
Was that
plays.
multiple series?
No, with Trubisky, it appears.
No, was it
to be-
multiple series that he set out? That's what I was asking.
I'd have to double check that. My guess is it was 1 series.
All right. Like I said, I'm just going to read you as soon as I find it. So let's go to quarterbacks here. Give me the quarterbacks that, are the
Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Tom Brady, Jalen Hurts.
Russ, Dak.
Russ
Herbert,
and Dak are
Stafford.
more in the questionable range for me with Stafford and Rodgers. No, Herbert's in that first group, except for this week.
All right.
okay.
So you've got like 11 quarterbacks that are in the first club.
First and second.
Maybe there's 4 or 5 that are in the VIP section.
I would put yes.
So they're the biggest club in town. These 11 quarterbacks are in there, but it's Kyler, Mahomes, Allen, Brady that are in the VIP section.
I would keep Lamar in there even with what he's been so far.
Okay. Lamar's not in my VIP section, but otherwise I agree.
Really? Okay. Why not, Dave?
Because he's only had 1 game with more than 20 fantasy points.
Does
He's
it
still
feel
a must-start fantasy quarterback and just not in that, super stud VIP gold star tier.
But Heath, I think, would say buy low on Lamar Jackson because there should be more production.
Great idea. It's a great idea.
I think Lamar Jackson's mostly been a touchdown problem, right?
I think so.
Right. Yeah. I mean, his yardage is very impressive. Let's see. Where the hell is this? You're gonna think I made this up, but I really
No,
didn't.
I don't think you made it up at all.
Did Devin Singletary even fumble at him?
Okay, here we go. Bills LVP. This is from The Athletic. Devin Singletary. His yards per attempt average was good, but he fumbled for the 4th time in 4 games. The Bills benched Singletary for the rest of that drive and the 2 drives after, and only brought him back once backups went in. It's worth keeping an eye on next week's running back usage. Okay, that's from The Athletic. All right. Did you include? I wasn't listening. I'm very sorry. Did you include Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr in your group?
No,
he is not in the big club.
So the question for quarterback is, if you have them, you don't feel like you need to make an upgrade. You could, but you don't need to. So if you had Carr and Cousins on your team, do you feel like you need to make an upgrade? Or
no, I didn't know we were changing the rules of the club, so they can be in the club now.
Okay, that is that is the quarterback rule. I want to know how many quarterbacks you feel like I can win my league with this guy. Right? So Carr, Cousins, Sam Darnold.
No, definitely not Sam Darnold.
No,
33% of
trying to
Sam
get in.
Darnold's fantasy points have come on rushing production, and he's run for 52 yards in 4 games.
But
Sam
he also
Darnold's
has an
a fake out.
extremely low touchdown.
I will deny it.
I believe.
What's that?
He also has a very low passing touchdown rate.
You know what? That's been consistent for 4 years.
But it's even lower, I'm pretty sure. I feel like it's a career low or close. I don't know. Yeah. Okay, like some of the 1-yard touchdown runs could be passing touchdown. But okay, fine. No Sam Darnold. How about? Yeah, I mean that's probably it, right? So,
well, did you mention Burrow? Because Burrow, I don't think we put him in the club.
Burrow.
Sam Darnold has a 3.4% touchdown rate. His career touchdown rate is 3.7%.
Yeah, there you go. See, it's low. How about so Joe Burrow? Right, but like obviously he's playing better, Heath. He's got 3 straight 300-yard passing games. So I would expect his touchdown rate would be better than what he's been with the Jets. So he's doing much better than he ever has. So I'm not looking at his career touchdown rate.
Right, but what he's done for his whole life has been QB 32. So he could be much, much better and not be in the club.
I agree. I'm not even arguing. I mean, I don't think Sam Darnold's in a fantasy league. No, I agree with you. I'm just saying that I feel like his touchdown rate probably should be higher because he's throwing for so many more yards.
And it might go higher once he stops rushing for touchdowns. If those runs become throws, then the touchdown rate is clearly going to go up.
But it might be lower once Christian McCaffrey comes back.
Do you feel like you can win your league with Derek Carr?
I mean, if the rest of my team's really good.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you can win it with Joe Burrow?
I think Burrow's at the front of the line to get into the club, and he's got a chance to get in without greasing the bouncer $50.
Do you see any other quarterbacks that could break into this must-start, no question about it group? And
Trey Lance.
Okay, Lance,
Burrow.
Wait,
could Tannehill get back in?
Yeah,
I think Tannehill could get back in.
Heath, I basically want to know, like, okay, I feel good at quarterback. I'm not panicking at all. I'm just going to ride this guy. That's what I'm talking about.
He could get into that group.
Who?
Trey Lance.
Tannehill, yeah. People are really very down on him.
He's been dropped in a bunch of our leagues.
Yeah.
Can't imagine what his rostership is.
That's his 2 wide receivers back. You know, he could definitely be someone you regret dropping when the season's over. What about Daniel Jones? Do you think he could become that?
Sure.
Really?
Oh boy, this is going to get Adam excited.
Oh,
the O line.
I mean, we're up to like 19 quarterbacks we've talked about, so I think he could be a top half of the league quarterback. Yes,
he's in the line. He's in line. He might even be close to the front of the line.
Taylor Heinicke.
Sure.
He's at the back of the line.
Okay, he's at the back. Justin Fields.
Back of the line.
But it's possible.
All right, that's it.
He's at the back of the line, and his dad is next to him in line. His dad is Matt Nagy. And his dad might say when he gets close to the front of the line, son, it's past your bedtime. You've got to go home. And then they like wave in Andy Dalton, who begs for change outside the club.
All right, we got to take a break here. When we come back, we're previewing the Rams and the Seahawks. Is the Rams defense still great? Because Russell Wilson really struggled against them in 3 starts last year. We'll talk about it right after this on Fantasy Football Today. 2 quarterbacks who are in the club, whatever that meant. Russell Wilson and Matthew Stafford face off on Thursday night. Rams at Seahawks.
Nah.
Yeah. Okay, which quarterback do you like better?
Stafford.
Which running back do you like better, assuming Carson plays?
Henderson.
Who is rank the top 3 wide receivers in this game? How would you rank them?
Cup, Metcalf, Lockett.
Sounds about right.
Okay. Is that how you'd rank it rest of season, by the way? Cup over Metcalf?
Yeah.
I went into a little bit of a deep dive on the Seahawks offense on Monday. Russell Wilson is having, by some measures, his best year so far, but they have run the fewest plays in the NFL. Their time of possession has been frighteningly low, and I hope that changes. Probably a little fluky. They're never this bad, and they're not like going to run a ton of plays, but they are fewest in the NFL. It's crazy, and that could be why we're seeing some inconsistency from Lockett and only one game with more than like 65 yards from DK Metcalf. All right, so let's start, though, with the Rams here. Matthew Stafford is a top 7 quarterback. Would you start Jalen Hurts over Stafford?
Yeah.
I'm starting Stafford over Hurts.
Okay, Hurts is at Carolina. They're very close.
No, I've got Stafford over Hurts. They're back-to-back.
Would you start Aaron Rodgers or Stafford?
Oh, Stafford. For
Would
sure.
you start Aaron Rodgers or Wilson?
Wilson.
I have Rodgers 1 spot ahead of Wilson.
All right, start the quarterbacks. Darrell Henderson. Let's talk a little bit more about him. Darrell Henderson or Damian Williams?
Henderson by a considerable margin.
Henderson is a top 40 player for me in PPR.
Okay.
Not running back.
Start
overall.
him. Darrell Henderson or Jonathan Taylor against Baltimore, at Baltimore, Monday night.
I would go Henderson.
I would too.
Wow. Okay, start Henderson. Chris Carson, then. We'll stick with the running backs here. Would you start Chris Carson or Jonathan Taylor in a tough matchup?
Taylor.
Carson is one that I have projected right behind the backup class of Damian Williams, Chuba Hubbard, and Samaje Perine. But for now, I've moved him higher in the rankings of that group. But it's a low-end number 2. Wish I had better options.
Okay, so
Dave's perplexed.
you'd start.
I actually agree.
Oh, okay. I thought you had a
With-
frown on your eyebrows. I thought I misread it.
You'd start Cordarrelle Patterson over Chris Carson.
I would.
We're there.
All right, so why?
I don't know what to expect from
Right.
Patterson or from Carson. Sorry, I kind of don't know what to expect from Patterson either. But from Carson, I really just don't know how much he's going to play. Don't know how effective he's going to be. I love this spot for running backs. He's at home on a short week, and the Rams just gave up 170 yards rushing to the Cardinals. But I don't know how good he's going to be. So that makes me nervous.
And we'll go to the wide receivers. Would you start Robert Woods or Chris Carson?
I believe I have Woods higher in PPR.
I think I have Carson higher than Woods, but
Sean McVay.
So I did, my deep dive was on Woods.
Yeah.
You did a deep dive on the Seahawks. Mine was on the Rams.
Right. It wasn't that deep of a dive. I just mentioned that they run the fewest plays. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So what I noticed is that the Rams are running plenty of design plays for Cooper Kupp, for Tyler Higbee, for Van Jefferson, for Darrell Henderson, and not really for Robert Woods. You can watch the Van Jefferson touchdown from last week. Robert Woods is blocking at the line of scrimmage on the play. I've tweeted out other plays where Woods is blocking while other players have success, and it definitely looks like Matthew Stafford favors Kupp over Woods, and he might favor just downfield throwing overall. We talked earlier this week about what the ADOT is for Robert Woods. His average depth of route this year, 7.79. That's wide receiver 99. Last year, it was 6.82. Stafford's average throw depth is 8.59. That's quarterback 13. Last year for Goff, it was 6.6. So it was really close as far as what Woods, the route of the depth of routes that Woods is running, but Stafford far and away more aggressive than Goff. And that's what's making it hard on Woods, who's just not running downfield nearly as much. He can get open versus zone coverage. There was one play where he ran straight and he looked fast. He's playing all the time, but I just feel like he's the odd man out right now in this offense. All that being said, Sean McVay came out this week and said, we need to get Robert Woods more opportunities. And that starts with me. The last time he said that, Deshaun Jackson went for over 100 yards. He was talking about Deshaun Jackson, and Jackson had a big game. I'm okay starting Woods as a flex, but, I'm at the tipping point where if you can't trust him, that's fine. This is a good matchup, by the way. Seattle's, I think, ninth most passing yards to receivers this year.
It is a good matchup. Who would you start ahead of him? Would you start Jacoby Myers? Would you start Jamison Crowder?
I would start Myers and Crowder in full PPR.
I think I've got Woods ahead of Crowder, but behind Myers, but they're in the same range.
How about Laviska Shenault or Robert Woods?
Shenault. He's got an even better matchup.
I think I have Woods. I have Woods higher than Shenault in non-PPR.
Last one. How about do a running back here? James Conner or Robert Woods?
Woods.
It's Woods.
Starter sit Tyler Higbee.
Prefer to sit.
Still a top 12 fantasy tight end.
Higbee or Pitts?
Pitts.
Okay. Russell Wilson, 3 games against the Rams last year. He scored 9, 21, and 19 fantasy points in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. Lockett, by the way, had 3 terrible games. 3 bad games. His best was 11 PPR points. Metcalf had 2 bad games and then a good game in the playoffs. So, I this Rams defense it doesn't appear to be as good as it was last year. 3 of the 4 teams that they have played have averaged more yards per play rather, than they do for the full season. So, in other words, they've kind of overperformed against the Rams. I don't know. They don't appear to be a lockdown defense by any stretch. So, Wilson is like kind of in the back of he's like around 10th for you guys. You think he's going to have a good game?
Yeah, I think he could have a good game. But the lack of pass attempts is definitely frustrating. I wish that he had a lot more. And he ranks 26th in pass attempts this year, and he's still top 5 in completion rate, yards per pass attempt, passing touchdowns, and passer rating. So just imagine what he would be if they would just say, "All right, let's throw it 33 times."
It's not the run. I think it's just the plays. Like I said, it's the time of possession has been incredible. They had an overtime game, a full overtime, and they had the ball for like 22 or 23 minutes in that game against the Titans. It's just weird what's happening there. So I don't know that they're so run heavy or anything like that. It is, like I said, he was plays in the NFL over and over again. I'll remind you. But all right, Wilson.
They do have a 51.6% pass rate on the year. So they are throwing it slightly more than they are running it. But in terms of the league average, that would definitely be skewed towards more run heavy than league average.
They always are that way, no?
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, it's not just a play volume thing for Russ. If they were running a league average number of plays, he would still be below average in terms of pass attempts.
He always is below average in terms of pass attempts. Is 51% higher or lower than what we usually see from the Seahawks?
They have bounced in both directions of that number, but they've
never been like 60%.
No, but they haven't really been like the Ravens or Titans either, where they go like 55% run.
Okay. If Carson is out, would you rank Alex Collins similarly, sort of back end of the top 24?
Yep.
I might even rank him higher.
Yeah. Okay. I could see that.
Because now there's no question about, Travis Homer would probably work in some passing downs, and that would be it.
DK Metcalf, is he a must start because Jalen Ramsey has not been shadowing this year?
Start him.
He'd be a must start even if Jalen Ramsey was shadowing.
Okay. Well, didn't work out so well last year, but all right.
No,
Tyler
Lockett.
Still
Start him.
Tyler Lockett, starter sit.
I've got him as a low end number 2 receiver in PPR.
I'm starting him.
Yeah.
Darrell Henderson or Tyler Lockett.
Really good options.
Henderson or Lockett?
Lockett higher than Henderson.
I think it's probably a
No, I don't. I have Henderson higher. My bad.
Okay. I'm assuming we're sitting the Seattle tight ends, and I got to do a little bit more Lockett. I'm sorry. Lockett is going to be ahead of Robert Woods, obviously, but would you rather start Lockett or Odell Beckham this week?
Lockett.
Lock.
Come on.
Lockett or Calvin Ridley against the Jets?
Ridley.
Lockett or Adam Thielen against Detroit?
Lockett.
Thielen.
Okay. Fournette against Miami or Lockett?
Lockett.
Lockett.
Okay.
Lock it up.
Sit the Seahawks tight ends and starter sit the Rams DST.
I'd prefer to have a different option, but I understand if you don't want to carry two defenses.
Reluctant starting option. You're keeping them because you know what they're capable of doing most weeks.
We're basically out of time. I don't have time to talk about the podcast league. Let's just go to the fantasy cops from the listeners. Okay.
Wait a minute. What you have done is more important than the listeners' questions.
No, nothing is more important than the listeners' questions.
It is definitely more important. They're going to learn.
I think we
more
can make
from
time. I think we can make time for
I'll
this.
do it at the very end.
Fine, that's fair.
Who cares? All right, fantasy cops from Detroit Hawk City. Since picking up Cordarrelle Patterson after week 2, my league commissioner has refused to grant him running back status. He cites it being a, quote, slippery slope, as he did not pick up Juwan Johnson, who only has wide receiver eligibility in our league, when he needed a tight end. We're also an IDP league, so he states that he would have to change some defensive linemen to linebackers. He called a league vote, which was skewed to review this change next year. I think it's common sense to make the change, and I don't think the other managers should have input. It does not help that I'm in first place and have a good team, blah, blah, blah. Is my complaint legit? Do you have any solutions or advice?
This is like literally almost could have come from our dynasty league, other than the fact that I did not call a league vote. I just did exactly what this commissioner did. I love the option to have the multi-position eligibility. I don't think, especially once someone's already picked Cordarrelle Patterson up off of waivers, you've had the fab process and people made the decision how much to bid on him based on his eligibility. I don't think after that process has gone through, you should be changing his eligibility.
It's a good argument. It is, but I keep telling people to change him because he's playing running back. And the thing is, he's been a running back, going into the year. It's not like this is his first time playing running back. So I guess, all right. So you think the commissioner did it right. Dave, how about you wrap this up real quick? What do you think?
I'm okay with changing the position in season. And I know that in IDP leagues, especially, that's going to impact a lot of other players.
And that's the key distinction for me.
It is. I understand, but it's not like you're taking away a position eligibility for anybody. You're just adding position eligibility for everybody.
I think I side with Heath here, especially since they did the league vote and the league's not okay with it. I
agree with the league vote part.
From Joseph. This came up in our fantasy basketball salary cap draft yesterday, but it fits in any salary cap league. A manager nominated a bench player, Seth Curry, for $40, and 2 managers immediately bid higher, thinking it was Steph Curry. This player would never go for that much normally if he didn't have a similar name. I asked to stop the draft and redo it over because it was an obvious mistake. The commish did not stop the draft and said, too bad, they should have known. This really disappointed me, and I decided to quit the draft because I did not want to be in a league with managers like this. What are your thoughts on this? Nominating Seth Curry. I mean, he nominated Seth Curry for $40. That is so risky. Usually it's like you nominate him for $1 and then everybody bids up because they think it's Steph or something. He nominated him for $40. That is so ballsy. But all right, what do you think, Dave?
You know why he nominated him for 40?
Why?
Because he thought it was Steph Curry.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think
nobody would purposely put Seth Curry out there for 40. They might do it. If you're just trying to do it for giggles, then you might do it for like 5.
And then your commissioner reverses it and says, okay, we had a nice laugh. Now let's get back to the real
stuff.
How
it should have gone down. That's how it should
not stand. Nobody should have Seth Curry for that.
Yeah, I think quitting the league was the right response.
All right. I got one more here from Stoke-on-Trent, England. This is from Jake in Stoke-on-Trent, England. I'm the commissioner in a work league that's run for 5 years. Over the weekend, 2 players made a bet on a soccer match involving players from their fantasy team. The bet lost for one player, so he traded Aaron Jones for Mike Davis. All of the league complained, and they reversed the trade, claiming it was a joke. Okay, good. League members still want the players to be punished. As it was reversed, I see no harm now, or at most maybe take $5 from their waiver wire budget. Please help and make the ruling.
No, reverse the deal. Tell them they can't make bets involving their fantasy teams.
Right, they did all that, but do you think they
that's done? It's over.
Yeah, I agree.
No further penalty this time.
No harm, no foul. All right, I'm going to read Apple Podcast questions, then we'll talk about what happened in the podcast league. From MD Juarez. Someone in my league dropped Cordarrelle Patterson. It's a 10-team league. I have Henry, Henderson, Edmonds, Damian Harris, Sermon, and Michelle. I'd be dropping Michelle for Patterson. Should I do that? And how much fab should I spend? 10-team league.
Yes, and 15%.
I was going to say 20%. So yeah.
From BD45, I have both Chubb and Hunt on my team, and every week is a massive mind game trying to figure out who to play at flex. Having Amari Cooper on my team as well, and Cortland Sutton and Allen Robinson. Is trading Hunt for someone like Chase Edmonds a good idea?
I would aim higher than Chase Edmonds. And you know what you could do? You could take Hunt and one of those underperforming receivers and try and turn it into one very good player. Start that guy.
Okay, yeah, I think Edmonds is not enough to get in trade.
By the way, I don't necessarily have a problem with starting Chubb and Hunt on the same fantasy team, especially with the way that Hunt is rolling these days. I think it's 11 or 12 touchdowns in his last 17 games with Chubb. That's a rough estimate, but it is that high.
All right, from Michael. Grade the trade. Get Swift and Hopkins. Give Brandon Cooks and DJ Moore. Cooks and Moore for Swift and Hopkins.
A+.
And from Big Meter, how do I decide between Fant and Pitts on a weekly basis?
You start Fant until Kyle Pitts starts to show signs of life, which he technically did in week 1.
Put them both on the trade offer and take the best offer.
I don't think you're going to get any good offers for either one.
All right, folks. So Saturday night, I was looking at the podcast league rosters, and I noticed that almost half the league had at least one player on IR that shouldn't have been. Our rule is you can put a player in your IR spot if he's actually on IR or if he's on the PUP list. Now, in the CBS app, there is a function that says you can only put players that are on IR in an IR spot, but I had to uncheck that to allow for PUP list players like Michael Thomas and Tariq Cohen, etc., to be put in an IR spot. Unfortunately, that allows you technically to put anyone you want there, but we're on an honor system. It's my job as the commissioner to be more vigilant and check. And I think some people forgot, but I did write an email, and the rules were, I wrote an email at the beginning of the year explaining what the IR's rule were. So you can only put players on IR or PUP in your IR spot. So on Saturday night, I sent an email that said, this is not okay, people. And I said, we got a bunch of managers who have players in our IR spot that shouldn't be. You have until kickoff on Sunday to make your lineups, your rosters legal. And if you don't, I'm giving you a loss. So 2 teams ended up winning with illegal rosters with players on IR that shouldn't be in an IR spot, players in an IR spot that shouldn't be there. Guys like, I think Eli Mitchell was one of them. T. Higgins was one, but that was a Thursday game, so I didn't count that one because I didn't warn them before. I don't know. You get the point. Players who were just out. AJ Brown, it might have been. No, whatever. Who cares? So I was thinking about giving them a loss. I reached out to them. It turns out that these managers did not see my email, didn't get the notification, because not only did I email on Saturday night, I also sent individual emails through the league on Sunday morning. They did not get them. I think that's their fault. I think they have to turn the notifications on in the league. I wish personally that I had given them more time instead of just Saturday night, which it was late. I think it was 10:30 or so. So that's on me a little bit. But ultimately, that was the rule, and they broke the rules. And I decided, after going back and forth with some of the managers, and one was very pissed off about it, I decided to give ties instead of losses. So 2 teams that actually lost were awarded a tie. Dave was one of them. He lost by less than a point to an illegal lineup team. I thought that I went a little bit too far with the losses, and I decided that a tie would be better. And I stand by my decision. And Heath obviously does not think I did the right thing.
It's just, I have received so much joy over the past 72 hours reading the emails from this situation. Even the very first one. Like, I think my favorite thing was last week where you sent an email out in a league you're not the commissioner, tattling on people who had players in their IR spots that were not IR spots.
Well,
that was really, it
knows.
reminded me, of another Azer moment in the past that we won't bring up now. But
everybody in those leagues knows the rules. Like in our podcast league, it might be a little bit different, but those are CBS leagues. Everybody knows the damn rules. You cannot put T. Higgins in an IR spot. That pissed me off. Like, people were cheating, in my opinion.
I'm in multiple leagues where if a player's out, you can put him in an IR spot.
Yeah, that's never been the case. It was
and that was the case in many of our leagues last year because the commissioner doesn't check, and it only gets enforced when you send tattletale emails. But
I'm fine with that.
Whistleblower. The idea that you sent an email at 11 o'clock on Saturday night, when presumably if half the league had players in IR spots, then half the league had an illegal lineup on Thursday when that game happened, and got to carry somebody for an extra however many days. Probably, I'm going to assume somebody had an illegal lineup last week and you didn't notice it.
It's possible.
And gave an ultimatum with basically 12 hours notice. Fix your
email.
Right. What percentage of people do you think check their email between 11 o'clock on Saturday night and 1 p.m. on Sunday afternoon?
95%.
Oh, I don't think that's accurate at all.
Well, they should.
Okay. No, I would disagree with that as well. And then the cowardice just immediately change your mind when these people say they didn't see your email, which you really shouldn't have expected them to in the first place.
Most people saw. Did you see the email?
What?
Did you see the email?
Yes, I have to check my email on Sunday mornings. Yes. I think a lot of people don't, but and then the solution to go with the tie.
Yeah.
Now we have 4 teams in our league with a 1 in the tie column.
So what?
And I loved the fact that we also have this point discrepancy now because you changed the point totals.
That's not my fault. That's the only way.
And in theory, if you had an illegal lineup, they should have just had 0 points.
No, I'm not giving them a 0. That's too punitive. That's too that's draconian. I'm not giving them a 0. I am giving them a tie. They lost a half a game in the standings. The teams that lost to them gained a half a game in the standings. I think that's the most fair thing here.
My only hope is that one of the 2 teams, and I need you to tell me which 2 teams they are so I can cheer for them to finish with a record of 6-7-1 or 7-6-1. My only hope is that the 2 teams who were gifted a half of victory take one of the last playoff spots over a team that was not involved in this controversy. That's my only hope. I hope that Dave gets the 6th seed and a team that had nothing to do with this has the 7th seed and would have had it.
Thank you, Heath. Dave, would you like to say anything to finish the show?
No, I need to abstain from this. Since
you say thank you.
Apparently benefited. Yeah, I mean, part of me wants to say, Adam, great job. You did super. I don't want to commission the podcast league. So I don't want to start criticizing you like Heath is, because then you'll just say, fine, I'm not going to do this next year. And then someone will have to do it, and it'll end up being the person who criticized you. So Heath, congratulations. Yeah. Commissioner Cummings has a great ring.
Oh, it would drive Adam crazy if I was the commissioner of this league.
No, but things would be done. And when Heath says something, he means it. And the lesson learned is when you send out an email that has the words in it, if anyone has an illegal lineup by kickoff on Sunday, I'll have to give you a loss. That should mean that if you have an illegal lineup by Sunday, then you're going to lose, not tie.
Oh, I guess actually Adam took a half a win away from you because you should have won that week.
He didn't say half a loss.
Right. No, Dave lost by 0.66 points.
Dave won by however many points he scored because the other guy had an illegal lineup, and you made it pretty clear.
I'm fine with it. I think it was the
Let me
most
tell you
fair thing to
something.
do.
This is the advice that I give my children all the time, especially my son. You have to be a man of your word or a woman of your word. You have to be able to have that's something in your control 100% of the time. So when you say something, you should mean it.
No, I'm not.
The world that we live in.
Heath,
Your reputation is constantly on the line.
Hey, Heath, are you the commissioner of the other podcast league, the For the People League?
I think I'm a co-commissioner.
Because what's going on in this league is pretty egregious too. There are a lot of players that
No, there's no bringing up other leagues and stuff like that. We're talking about this league, and you made your decision. We're all going to live
Julio
with it.
Jones on IR in that league, so well,
maybe the rules say that you can put players who are out on IR.
They don't say
Also,
that. Right,
we
gotta go.
I think what Jamie said was probably the better way to handle it in the future. If you have someone in an IR spot, and you should give them more than 12 hours notice, when the week starts, and I usually check this on Wednesday morning. I'll check it in my leagues today, and then that person's getting dropped
by Sunday.
I wasn't. No, I think it's like I'd rather give someone a loss than make them drop T. Higgins. I mean, it's like I'm not dropping them. But yeah, I should have reached out earlier. That was the problem. At the same time, like if you are in a league and you don't turn your notifications on,
other solution,
not on me. That's not on me.
The other solution that you would have made this much easier. And I do this in our dynasty league. If I go find somebody on an IR spot that doesn't belong there, I just put them on the person's bench, and then the league gives them the notification they have an illegal lineup and they're going to score 0 points.
Guess what? They wouldn't have gotten the notification anyway.
They would have. I bet they checked their lineup. They just didn't check their email.
Check the freaking message board. It's right in the center of the page.
Most people just do it on their phone, Adam.
Well, get on your laptop. What is this, 2021? All right, we got to go. I'm done. We're out of here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for